Attorney John Dillon, how are you, man?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Stranger, how you been?
I've been good, new kid in the house and
Congratulations.
working on gun cases.
How's what'd you get? Little boy or little girl?
Boy, Hunter.
Don't you already have a boy?
Yeah, I got two others, so I'm starting in my own army.
I bet your wife is thrilled with you.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, she's a little outnumbered these days.
Just a tad. But you know what? They're going to be mama's boys anyway, so you haven't got a prayer. Or she doesn't have a prayer.
There you go.
All right, so let's talk about
let's get to work.
Caniglia versus Strom. That's the Second Amendment case. Really more of a Fourth Amendment case, or maybe it's a Fourth and a Second Amendment case. Court ruled unanimously in favor of gun owners. Tell us a little bit about the case and what's it going to do for us?
Yeah, so Michael, you nailed it. Although this had to do with the confiscation of guns and firearms, and there were Second Amendment claims made, especially at the lower court level, the decision that came out of the Supreme Court on the 17th, just a few days ago, was a Fourth Amendment case. But even if you're a diehard Second Amendment guy, you should really, really love the Fourth Amendment. It's one of the real important ones there. And just to remind everyone, the Fourth Amendment protects you as a citizen of this country from being subject to warrantless searches of your home and property, and also the seizure of your property without warrant and probable cause. So what happened here, just to give you the facts of the case, is this guy, Edward Caniglia, he was having an argument with his wife, and during this argument, he took out an unloaded gun and put it on the table and said, well, why don't you just shoot me and put me out of my misery? And, gun wasn't actually loaded, and his wife apparently didn't really think it was a true threat to, kill himself or anything like that. But she ended up leaving and then wanted the police to check on her husband later on that night. And so she called for a welfare check. Police came over to the house and they talked to Mr. Caniglia. And they basically said, well, why don't you come down to the hospital? We'll do an evaluation on you, make sure you're okay. That he would agree to go with them as long as they didn't, take his firearms and confiscate his firearms. So they take him to the hospital, then the police come back and search the house and take his firearms anyway. And
so he sued saying, hey, wait a minute, you guys didn't have a warrant. I didn't give you permission.
Yeah, you can't come into my house. You can't take my stuff. And law enforcement that, well, we were just abiding by the community caretaker exception to the warrant requirement. And what that is, with the Fourth Amendment, 100 years later type thing, with all the court cases I've gone through, there are certain exceptions to, the Fourth Amendment, and where police can actually search and seize property without a warrant. Exceptions to that law. But one of them has been labeled a community caretaking exception. And it came from a called Caddy v. Dombrowski, which basically involved an impounded car. And a police officer searched the trunk of the car and found a firearm. Now, it was argued in that case that, the search that he was doing was just a community caretaking search. It wasn't to, pursue any criminal action or try to get any criminal charges placed on them. They're just making an inventory type thing of all the stuff in the car. Now, courts are battled over this of whether this community caretaking exemption applies to the home as well. And with this case, the Supreme Court came back with a unanimous decision, which is a pretty cool thing to see these days, especially with the political climate that we've all witnessed the last few years. You had both, quote, liberal judges and conservative judges agreeing for the most part. And they said that this so-called community caretaking exception does not apply to the home.
Yeah, I think Thomas said something along the lines of that clearly the Fourth Amendment was intended to allow people to retreat into their home to protect their personal effects or something along those lines, right?
Oh, yeah. And he said that the lower court's decision to allow this community caretaking exemption to the home went beyond anything this court, meaning the Supreme Court, has recognized what is, and it's gone beyond anything the court has recognized as reasonable, and also that what is reasonable for a vehicle is very different from what is reasonable for a home. So you can't just apply, broadly these exceptions to get into a vehicle to the home. Your home is your castle, and so that is the height of protection when it comes to the Fourth Amendment, is your home. And this is something going back to the founding era, why we had a revolution. Back when we were under rule of England, the military and police and the officers of England could just enter your home without any warrant, without any affidavit in front of a judge. They should go in and search your stuff and take your stuff. And we thought that was a big problem.
It was a big problem. So do you think that this case would have been decided the same way had they confiscated something other than a firearm? Or do you think the fact that it was a firearm, is that crucial to the case?
It's honestly not, I would say. This, although it involved a firearm, this was a Fourth Amendment case. And I say that because although Second Amendment claims were made at the lower court levels, the questions of law that were appealed and eventually made it up to the Supreme Court were a purely Fourth Amendment question of law. So, if this was drugs or something else, it still
applies.
It would have been decided the same way.
Now, here's a big question, and I know Alito actually directly talked about this in his decision, but what you, John Dillon, attorney extraordinaire, what do you think? What's the impact going to be on gun violence restraining orders as a result of this case, or the next case down the line? Do you think this is the first chip in the armor there for gun violence restraining orders, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so definitely when this case, was granted certiorari, all the Second Amendment gun violence restraining order attorneys like me, our ears perked up because this is there's a lot of crossover when it comes to restraining order search and the search that was kind of done here. Now, like you said, Justice Alito did say that this opinion does not address red flag laws, which would be a gun violence restraining order in California. But Alito also noted that those could be challenged under the Fourth Amendment, and that's something that the Supreme Court could review in the future.
He was almost inviting them to. He was almost daring them, saying, "Hey, let's do this thing." Or wasn't that the impression you got?
Yeah, and there's two ways to see that. You can see it as more of a pessimist. Decision's great, but they're literally saying, "Oh no, we can still do red flag laws, and no one's challenged that, and we're not hurting red flag laws, issuing this decision." Or you can see it the other way, like, hey, they're saying maybe we need to start challenging these red flag laws and gun violence restraining orders under the Second Amendment and get it up in front of the Supreme Court for review.
Wow. Awesome.
So there's a lot there. The concurring opinions did address other issues that are on the outskirts there, but it was a good one, definitely.
It's about time you called in on something good. Jeez Louise. All right, buddy. Hey, I hope so. Well, it's always good talking to you, folks. John Dillon is your man. If you're a gun owner and you need any help whatsoever, check this guy out. Take care, buddy. Say hi to the family.
Thanks for watching this clip from Gun Owners Radio. You can watch us live every Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. California time, right here on our YouTube channel, or if you're in the San Diego area, you can listen to us on 1170 a.m. We're also available on your favorite podcast platform for free. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can help restore and protect the Second Amendment, not just in California, but across the country.